Hi, I'm Catherine and I'm going to be your teacher for today. Here at Prime Pass, we've created some really easy and simple painting tutorials for you to create a masterpiece in the comfort of your own home. So make yourself comfortable, pour yourself a drink, put on some music and get ready to get creative. In your painting kit, you will find 12 tubes of acrylic paint. You'll have 2 paintbrushes, a medium-sized brush and a smaller brush. You'll have your canvas board, your painting palette for you to squirt all your paints onto and to do your mixing. And you'll also need some kitchen towel, a cup of water and a kitchen sponge. In this tutorial, we're going to be painting mountains in pink mist, and it's all about introducing really beautiful tones of pink against a bright yellow sky, and it's perfect for beginners. So let's get started. When you have all your materials set up in front of you, we can start preparing our painting palette. For this painting, we're going to be using white, red and yellow. So I'm going to start off with my white, and I'm going to squirt a blob of white into my palette. So the first colour that I'm going to be mixing is a nice bright orange. So I'm going to take my large brush and I'm going to dip it in my water, and then I'm going to take a tissue and just wipe my brush slightly in the tissue. And I'm going to take some red and I'm just going to pop it into one of the dishes. And then I'm going to take some yellow and then I'm going to add that to the red. So you'll need quite a lot of yellow. It's going to be quite a bright orange. Okay, so there we have our orange. Now we're ready to start painting. Alright, so before we start painting, we need to draw in where our mountains are going to be. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to start to draw in my mountain peaks. So I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. And I'm going to go about 1.5 inches from the top. And I'm going to start on the left-hand side and work my way across. So our mountains are going to be very jagged, sharp lines. They're not going to be smooth. But you can really choose what shape you want your mountains to be. It's completely up to you. Also, I'm going to add my sun in at the top. And that's just a little circle of the sun peeking through from behind the mountains. And again, you can have it coming up higher, and you can have like a bigger sun. Whatever you want to do with your painting, it's completely up to you. And then I'm going to take about the same distance from the top is where I'm going to add my second line for my mountains. Okay, so those are our mountain peaks, and now we're ready to start painting. So I'm going to take my kitchen sponge and I'm going to just dip it in my water to get it a little bit damp, and then I'm just going to squeeze off the excess. And then with one corner, I'm going to dip into the yellow paint. And then I'm going to do horizontal strokes with my sponge quite loose strokes, you can get even more paint on there. And then with that same corner, I'm going to dip into the white, and we're going to add slightly lighter tones of yellow underneath our darker tone of yellow. So I'm going to go from kind of left to right, very loose strokes. If you go over your pencil line, don't worry too much. And also if you go into your sun, don't worry either. And then you can start to bring in kind of nice, longer strokes with your sponge. Okay, so there we have our bright yellow sky. We'll wait for that to dry before we start painting in our mountains. So when your yellow sky is nice and dry, we can start painting in our mountains. But first we need to start mixing a nice light pink, which is going to be our first mountain range at the top. So I'm going to take my large brush, and I'm just going to replenish my white because we're going to need quite a lot to make sure we have enough paint for the whole canvas. And you can also just keep adding to your white as and when you need more. So I'm going to take a nice, good scoop of white, and I'm going to pop it in the middle of my palette, just so I've got plenty of space to do my mixing. And I'm going to take even more than that. And I'm just going to use the edge to take off some of the excess paint. And then with my brush, I'm just going to take the tiniest bit of red, not too much. So a very, very little amount. You can always add more. And I'm going to add that to my white. And I'm going to mix that in. I might need just a little bit more red in there. So I'm going to take just a little bit more again. Okay, so when you're happy with your pink, I'm going to just take off some of the excess again on the edge of my palette. And I'm going to start to paint in my first mountain range at the top. So I'm going to work from left to right, and you can be really precise when you're doing this, so take it nice and slowly, no rush. And you're going to paint just slightly over your pencil line. So bring the paint slightly above the line to make sure you're kind of hiding those pencil marks. So I'm just going to fill in the rest of this space. I'm also going to dip straight into the white with my brush, so I'm not going to clean it, I'm going to dip straight in because I want to create a nice kind of light area at the bottom of our pink to create some really lovely light tones. So keep dipping into the white. And don't worry if you kind of paint over your line underneath slightly, that's fine. We can still see it underneath. And then I'm just going to blend that with the pink slightly. Okay, so when you're happy with your first mountain range at the top, we'll wait for that to dry and then we'll fill in the mountain at the bottom. Okay, so when your first mountain range has dried, we can move on to our second mountain range. At the moment, you might not be able to see, but this is actually a really lovely pink colour and it might not show out very well on camera. But once we have our sun in here and once we've added the rest of our mountain colours, then you will be able to see that really lovely contrast between the darker pinks and the lighter pink. So I'm going to wash my brush in my water. And we're going to mix a slightly darker pink this time. So we're going to take our light pink that we've been working with and we're just going to add slightly more red to it just to darken it a little bit. So I'm going to take some red and you can choose an area in your pink mix and we're going to add some more red. Okay, so that's quite a nice pink, not too dark at the moment. We will go darker, but that's quite a good pink that we're going to be working with. So now I'm going to fill in my second mountain range underneath. And again, really take your time with it, go nice and slowly. And then we're going to fill in the rest of that space for our second mountain range. So don't take this tone of pink too far down, we're going to stop there. And same as we did in our first mountain range at the top, I'm going to dip my brush into the white. So I'm not going to clean it, I'm just going to dip straight into the white. And same again, we're going to bring in some lovely light tones with our white paint. And I'm keeping my brush kind of really loose and free. And then I'm going to dip back into my pink. And I'm going to add a little more pink in there. So we can really kind of layer up our colours, we can switch between colours. And we can dip back into the white again. Okay, so there we have our second mountain range painted in, and we're going to wait for that to dry before we move on to our third. Okay, so I'm just going to dip into a little bit more white and fill in our last space in the corner over here. So now I'm going to just wipe my brush in my tissue to get off some of the excess paint, and then I'm going to blend the colours together. Okay, so that is our third mountain range. One more to go. We're going to wait for this to dry and then we're going to keep painting. Okay, so I'm going to rinse off my brush in my water. So we're ready to paint in the last mountain range. So I'm going to add even more red to the mix this time. So dipping into the red paint and adding that to our mixture. Just going to add a little bit more. Okay, so now we can fill in our final mountain range exactly like we did with the other two. So for the final mountain that we're painting at the moment, there's just slightly less white at the bottom. So we're going to go lower with this tone of pink that we've mixed. Okay, so I'm going to take that to about there and I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to dip into my white, and we're going to bring in those nice kind of light pink tones again. Okay, so we're going to wait for that to dry and then we're going to paint in our sun. Okay, so when your canvas is dry, we can start to paint in our sun. I'm just going to wash off my brush in my water. And dry it into my tissue. And then I'm going to take my small paintbrush and I'm going to dip into that nice orange that we mixed earlier on. I'm just going to dip into the water slightly. And really coat your brush, get lots of that orange paint on there. And then I'm just going to take off some of the excess on the side of the dish. And then carefully we're going to paint in our sun at the top. So again, really take your time with it. Nice and slowly. Okay, so there we have it, our mountains in the pink mist. You're welcome to keep painting, you're welcome to add anything or even change the colours. But I hope you've had fun with this today and we'll let that dry. So there we have mountains in the pink mist. I hope you enjoyed painting along with me today and I hope you've tried something new. Do check out more of our tutorials at Prime Pass. We have a whole range of paintings for you to choose from, so I hope to see you in the next tutorial.